Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to The Law. This is your legal light and health law. I'm Samson Ladi Anyenini. In the last 2 weeks, we have been giving you education on domestic violence. What exactly is domestic violence? What are the acts that constitute domestic violence? We have taken you through almost all of them, if you like. So today, we keep our promise to help you get help. How do you get help? We'll be right back.
I am James Opombuenu, the Inspector General of Police of Ghana. I am also a husband and a parent. As the Chief Law Enforcer, I'm concerned about the rising trend in spousal and other domestic abuse cases in the country. This trend is partly due to the fact that many of such cases go unreported. You and I should therefore have a rethink of our views on domestic abuse and resolve to report any of such cases that come to our notice or knowledge and see the cases we report through. The police will do our work, but we need you to support the fight against domestic abuse. So join me in the fight against domestic abuse. Say no to domestic abuse.
Every year, many women and girls in Ghana sadly become victims of domestic abuse. The recent spate of violence against women and girls is tragic. It also poses a significant setback to efforts to bridge the gap on equal opportunities for all. I appeal to all Ghanaians to join me in the fight against domestic abuse. I am Rebecca Kufuado, and I say no to domestic abuse.
Let's all say no to domestic abuse or domestic violence. Today, we are once again privileged and very excited to welcome to the studio Chief Superintendent Owusu Atreme, and she is the DOFSU Coordinating Director. Thank you for making the time once again.
Thank you.
Also joining us via Zoom is Irene Abochenyahe, Director, Legal Assistance Network, Ghana, and Executive Member of FIDA Ghana. Irene, once again, we are very, very grateful to you. Right. We'll need you to unmute because your microphone is muted.
Are you okay?
Great. We have you.
Very much.
So I'd like us to begin on this note. We have spent 2 weeks, not counting the previous other weeks within the previous months that we had dealt with subjects of domestic violence. So how can you do some sort of a summary for us to bring our minds back to what we mean when we say domestic violence?
Okay. Generally speaking, if we refer to abuse as a willful act on the part of a spouse or an intimate partner with the intention to dominate and control, or to unfairly balance the power in the domestic setting. So before you can qualify under the Domestic Violence Act, you must have a relationship, either existing or previous relationship, with the perpetrator. It is not always about intimate relationships. Sometimes a house help, a co-worker, and maybe a schoolmate or under some circumstances. So what we say is that before we can establish that there is a domestic relationship between you and the perpetrator, you should fall within the domestic setting. And that's what I was trying to explain.
Right.
That the law says that it should be an intimate partner, current or previous, or some other relationship. Right. So any violence or abuse that takes place between those settings is a domestic violence.
Thank you.
Now we have different types. We have the physical, verbal, emotional, and psychological, and the economic abuses. There are different types that we have, depending upon what is happening. And so in a nutshell, that is how I'll refer to it. So you'll have to fall within the setting. But let me quickly add that any violence or any violation that takes place even within the Criminal Offences Act, if you are violated under any of those rules, but you have a domestic relationship with the person perpetrating that act, it will still fall under the Domestic Violence Act.
Okay. All right. Now, you were trying to give us a list of the relationships within which the situation can occur and will be referred to as domestic abuse. The law is what you were actually detailing. So let me read it back to our audience. It says in Section 2 of the Domestic Violence Act, it says the domestic relationship means a family relationship, a relationship akin to a family relationship, or a relationship in a domestic situation that exists or has existed, like you said, previous, or has existed between a complainant and a respondent, and includes a relationship where the complainant, that is the one who is going to make the complaint, is or has been married to that person, lives with the person, married or not married. Then it says where the person is engaged to. So when you are engaged to somebody to be married, when you are in courting, as in courtship, and it says when you are in an actual or perceived romantic, intimate, or cordial relationship. An actual, perceived, romantic, intimate, or cordial relationship, not necessarily including a sexual relationship. And I think that is an emphasis that we must all learn. It must not be that the two people involved have a sexual relationship. And it could be parents of a child, or those who are expecting a child together. You may not be married, but you could be expecting a child together. Or you are a foster parent of a child. And then again, it could be family members or people related by consanguinity, affinity, or adoption. And then it says it could also be where you share or have shared the same residence, like you mentioned, co-tenants, among others. And I think in the previous week, you had also educated us that even the court can determine whether the relationship is domestic or it is not. Now, let's come to Usua. What would you have to add to this? The things that someone does to me and I should begin to get worried and become alert that domestic violence is taking place. What are some of these?
Okay, thank you very much, Samson. There are lots of incidents that it will be difficult to really detail all. But basically, what we tell people is that anytime you are dealing with a person, and whatever the person is doing consistently makes you feel unhappy, or is a threat to your health. For instance, it is possible the person can harm you, or the person assaults you, or the person talks to you anyhow. That makes you feel unworthy, or it makes you feel like you are lesser than a human being.
All right.
Or maybe when the person has an argument with you or there's a misunderstanding, the person will use maybe a sharp object to harm you. And also in the cases of children, where the child is not even allowed to sleep at home, but allowed to sleep outside as a form of a punishment. When you see that, when you are in a compound house and you see a parent doing that, that means the child is being abused. Because no matter what the child has done or has not done, the child is entitled to a shelter. It's the child's right, like any other human being. So the child is supposed to stay in. So when you see a child being denied food because he stole or she stole meat from the soup, it's a sign of abuse.
But this is a very normal way we punish children in our society. We say, if you do that, you won't sleep in this house. Yes. If you do that, there will not be food for you.
Yes, it's an abuse. Because the child has a right to these things, because the child needs food and other care for his or her own development. Now, if a parent has a right under the law to correct the child, but whatever correction you met out to your child, you must take into consideration the age. Withholding food and shelter and water from your child and clothing is not a punishment that will be sanctioned by the law. Okay. It is an abuse. And also, apart from that, when you also have instances where the person does not communicate with you, avoids you, or anytime you want to discuss issues, the person starts insulting you, or consistently makes you feel that, you know, you are not part of decision making and all that, these are indicators that you need to speak to a professional.
Okay.
Preferably DOFSU.
Right. And the law says that domestic violence involves threat or harm, so which means it can happen even when the actual thing has not happened. Definitely.
So, because if you look at the law, the Act 29 has been incorporated into the DV Act, the Criminal Offences Act. So it is then part of it. So anything that causes harm or threat under that act is also an offense here.
Right.
So what it means is that once you threaten the person, and you know, most of, under the Criminal Offences Act, you threaten the person to cause harm to the person or death to the person. Now you put the person in an anxious situation. In that instance, once you threaten the person and say, look, because of what you've done, you are not going to eat. I'm going to keep you out of the house. You are not going to sleep. So between the time you said that and evening, the person will be anxious and will be uncomfortable. It's like, where am I going to stay? How am I going to sleep in case it rains this evening? So in that situation, yes, once it is threat, even if you don't need to carry it out.
Right. Under the Criminal Offences Act, threat of harm is a misdemeanor, and the harm itself is a second-degree felony.
Exactly.
Which means you can get to jail for about 10 years, and the threat alone can get you to jail for about 3 years.
Yes, yes. So you don't need to carry out. And one thing we also need to take note of is that you don't need a lot of acts to constitute domestic violence. Just one act is enough. Okay. So let's say you stayed with your partner or your children for 30 years and there's not been any incident of domestic violence. Just one day, within a space of a second or two, if you get angry with your partner and you throw your partner's things outside, it is abuse.
All right.
And the person can come to the police to report.
All right.
It is just that in such instances, depending on the circumstances of the case, the law allows arbitration. The law allows you to withdraw the case. You can decide to withdraw the case from the police station, but it will be dependent on the fact that you have gone for counseling.
Okay. Before. Very interesting. So we are going to go into the depth of the help you can get. What kinds of help are available for you if you found yourself in an abused situation? Now, so Irene, OSWA has been trying to expand and explain these things to us, but in our ordinary, relationships in father, child, father, wife, husband, husband, wife, and so on and so forth. When do I determine that this thing has become a threat of the nature of domestic violence rather than what happens ordinarily every day in our lives? Because we all get angry at one point. Of course, we know that the campaign so far has been to get people to just love each other and stop doing these things. But this is a human society. We'll still have people who will do bad. So when do I say that it has gotten to a point where I need to bring it to the attention of third parties?
Thank you. as you said, we all have wear and tear of domestic relationships. But if you look closely at the law, you will see that what the perpetrator is doing is willful and is trying to make life difficult for you. Nobody runs to Dofsu in a happy relationship or marriage or in a domestic setting. You will realize that where the thing is getting to right now, if you don't take any steps, either you'll be killed or you'll be injured. And let me say that before a survivor gets to Dofsu, you would have already seen that the person has endured years of abuse. That is the truth on the ground. They would have tried to, because the society sees marriage as very important. So a lot of partners try to survive the marriage, try to pray and do all kinds of things. But by the time the person gets to Dofsu or tries calling people and try informing people about it, you realize the person has endured a lot. But we are trying to put it out there that we are targeting peaceful coexistence. So, and some of our, some survivors are also going through things that previously may be seen as normal. But through this education and other platforms, they're getting to know that all the things that they are experiencing are part of domestic violence. So even the discussion alone is helping to bring to the fore that we need to respect each other and live peacefully. So if you are consistent and is ensuring that you don't live as a normal human being, you cannot go out freely if you want to go out. You cannot have friends over or even go out and visit anybody. You will have to constantly check and see that your life is not just a normal life. Look at when you were dating. I was even thinking the last time that when you are dating somebody, when you are walking, they said, oh, honey, don't hit your head, watch the gutter. But after the marriage, then the very things that you are doing, it will be turned into, look at you. Can't you see that there's a gutter? Are you blind? Now, when did that thing happen? So it appears that because of familiarity, now that cordiality and peaceful coexistence has just evaporated. But we want to treat each other as human beings and respect each other. So if you can see that your life is not normal, you are not a child, but you are being dictated to every day, and you, the survivor, you are uncomfortable with the situation, and you can see that if you do not stop this, it will escalate, because it's a pattern that graduates. The perpetrators start gradually and upgrade to killing. So the moment you start seeing the signs, you need to help even the perpetrator. I always say that the perpetrator also needs help. So if you start reporting, the moment you start seeing the patterns, and don't think that you can pray it away. Okay. You will to seek help. I said that at Dofsu, we also have counseling. My boss is there. The chief soup is there. There's counseling. There are psychologists that they can arrange all other things for you. Let's also remember that the coexistence that the survivor is looking for, or the peaceful coexistence that the survivor is looking for, doesn't mean that the entire family should attack her, that why did you take your husband to Dofsu? Don't you know that you are disrespecting or you are disgracing our family? No, there is a problem, and I think that the survivor wants to keep her home. That is why she is taking the step to consult or go to where the solution can be found. So I would rather say that we should encourage survivors whenever they want to seek help with Dofsu. So if you have come to a stage where you realize that your life is not normal, there's pressure, there's intimidation, there's control, I think you should take the step.
And there's one thing you have said that is striking to me. You say that even the perpetrator needs help.
Yes.
That's very striking to me, that the one who is committing the act is someone in need of help.
Yes, sometimes, yes, because why? Because the person might have been an abused person before. Maybe growing up, he or she observed the parents, whoever, being abused, and he or she formed the idea that, you know, it is okay, or as a form of punishment, especially even maybe the child herself or himself might have suffered that kind of abuse.
Right.
And so, for instance, when maybe growing up, anytime she did something wrong, the mother or the father would beat her. So she thinks that when somebody does something wrong, you must punish the person.
I was denied food as punishment.
Yes.
I was asked, you won't go to school today as punishment.
Exactly.
Okay, and I was even threatened that you will not sleep at home today as punishment. But I never saw it as an abuse.
So that is when you were growing up. Exactly. So when you grow up, you're going to do the same to your children if you don't get the knowledge needed to know that this is an abuse. So that's why Madam Irene is saying that the abuser himself would also need help. Exactly, because to him or her it is normal.
That approach, because it's holistic.
Yes,
it is empathetic.
Exactly. And even in some other countries, people have other interpretation, you know, looking at it from science background. And I mean, we are yet to go into details here when it comes to Ghana. Currently, it's more focused on the survivor, to look for help for the survivor. But going forward, we also need to understand and study why the abuser does what they do. Because it is when you understand them that it will help inform the decisions in terms of policy and how to approach issues of domestic violence.
So now to my next substantive question to you, and then we will now get into you guys telling us what help is available and how we can get the help. We'll also open the lines for you to join us if you have any questions as to how you can get help. Often, we find that a survivor, yes, has survived. But we have situations where it is gotten too late. So people are dying, they are being killed in the domestic abuse situations. How does that happen so that people will avoid it?
Most of the times, people think about, one, what the society will think, instead of placing their happiness first. I always tell people that when it comes to suffering abuse, it is your decision to make. You don't have to think about what other people would say, but most of the time, unfortunately, people think about what is the society going to say. Oh, I just had a very wonderful
Because they are thinking if they report a husband or a wife, you will throw them into jail. And that's the breadwinner sometimes. Well,
at that point in time, it is your life you have to think about. If the survivor does not want, the abuser does not want to go to jail, he must think about it. As I sit here, I don't want to go to jail. So I must make sure I obey the law. So if you don't want to obey the law, then it is not for the survivor to think about your welfare or your interest. We all are dependent on, we need to think about our own interests first before some other person might think about yours or take care of you. So if you refuse to think about the consequences of your action and you think that somebody who is suffering the abuse should think about your interests, that would be unfair. So for me, one, we always encourage people, immediately you start feeling, noticing the signs of abuse, get help. And then one other reason why people stay in their marriage is also the fact that the society, the family members will come in and say, oh, why are you leaving? You know, when you leave, it is not good. As for marriage, you must endure and all that. For me, I describe those people as enablers of abuse. They will not be committing the abuse directly, but they are creating the environment for the abuser to continue to do the abuse. So most of the time, it is societal. Sometimes it is economic. The woman is so dependent on the man to the extent that she's thinking about what's next. And that's why it's so critical for us as a nation to have structures in place to the extent that we can quickly provide the necessary help for the abusers. Because for instance, if you have to leave home, the next question is, I'm leaving home to go where? Probably you want to go to a friend. The friend might keep you for maybe 3 days a week, after which then you will see another domestic incident also starting from there. So it is important that we take them from the environment to a safer place. So some of the reasons are economic, societal, status. What are people going to say about me leaving the home?
All right. Now, we will soon activate the phone lines and so you can join us. That is when we are at about 2:40, so we have some time for you to also ask your questions and get some answers to them. Now, let's begin with Irene, and you have been doing a lot of work assisting people as in survivors or victims. Now, I'm just looking at the law here, and it talks about prohibition of domestic violence. It talks about domestic violence not justified by consent. It talks about how to file your complaint if to the police, with the police, if you are in that situation. Then it talks about police assistance. It talks also about arrest by the police, of course, of the person who is doing so. And then there are application for what it calls protection order. And then I've seen a number of them, interim protection order. I am familiar with situations where a wife, you know, is granted the opportunity to stay in the home, and the man who may have done those acts is asked to go somewhere else or to get a rent and stay away. There is occupation order, among others. Teachers, what are the kinds of help available to a victim or survivor?
Okay. I would say that it depends, because we live in society, and depends upon the abuser you are dealing with. And then the response and the need and the help that you will seek. So you have highlighted the general protections in the Act, the interim protection orders, and the occupation orders. The main difference between the protection order and the occupation order is that the interim protection order tries to give direct protection to the physical, and in a way to also some economic protection. But with the occupation order, you have also indicated how a perpetrator can be ordered out of the matrimonial home so that there will be peace in the house. So you can obtain an order. So the first step is that you report to DOFSU.
Right.
When you report to DOFSU, they will take your facts, and you need some form of evidence to present to the court that indeed there is some perpetration of violence, be it economic or whatever. So after DOFSU takes your facts, usually what I do is that I procure extracts as evidence. If you have pictures or some other things, I will attach it to the application to the court. So let's take, for example, that you have a mortgage. An example of economic abuse. That's why I said it depends upon what is happening. If you have a mortgage to pay, and the perpetrator knowing very well that you don't have the money to pay, and he decided to, or she has decided to cripple you or abuse you economically by vacating or even being there, by refusing to pay the mortgage, with the sole aim that it's a matter of time. By the time the mortgage is due, you'll be thrown out of the house. So the person refuses to pay the mortgage. Now you can come under Section 15(2) and apply. After you report to the DOFSU, you can apply and then exhibit your complaint and other things to it, and obtain a court order, which will order the person abusing you by refusing to pay the mortgage to continue paying the mortgage. You cannot disobey the court order, because if you do, there will be contempt. Now, if the person is preventing you from food, shelter, and rest, you can go through the same process and obtain the necessary documentation and evidence of sale. Because you know, when you go to court, you have to produce evidence. It's just not a matter of running and complaining. You have to produce evidence. So if you are in an abusive relationship, you should be taking notes of gathering some evidence of assault, so that when you need help, you can produce that before the court and you can get the appropriate order. So in a summary, depends upon what is happening.
Okay. Help us again. What is the form of evidence that you are talking about that people should gather? And you talk about notes. Is it about just writing in my diary, or what is it?
Well, that could also help. And sometimes exchanges of text messages or take pictures of what is happening, or maybe a video recording of what is happening. Because our lords, our judges, they are not gods. So if you come and said, I was slapped or I was kicked or something happened to me, unless you have the bruises and the medical officers can establish it, it will be difficult for them to just assume that it's true, because we also have liars.
Right.
So, yes. So if you can obtain, even, for example, let's stay with the mortgage. If you can obtain evidence that the mortgage is due for about some time now, and the person who pays the mortgage, because maybe you have been disempowered economically through some arrangement that you don't work, and the other person is the person that works and pays the mortgage, or there was an agreement from the beginning that you take care of the children, pay their fees, do buy food and support the house, so that I will pay for the mortgage. So that arrangement has been in existence for some time, and now that the person wants to abuse you, he has decided not to pay for the mortgage. So that is it. It's part of the economic abuse, and that is your solution under the circumstances. So I keep saying that it is not in every situation that the police officers will arrest. So if you go to doctor, don't say go and arrest. It depends upon what is happening and the solution available in the law.
Okay.
So if we move away from the economic abuse, the example that I just gave, what about the person is a psychopath? Or the person is always under some influence of drugs or alcohol and needs some rehabilitation? There is also a provision in the Act that allows you to go through the same process and apply to ask the person to go for rehabilitation or counseling. It's in the law. So we've looked at the psychological part and the economical part, or if we can also talk about the physical abuse. That one too, if you can take pictures, or it's the sexual abuse that you've just encountered, don't bath. Don't go and bath before you go to the hospital and go and complain, or when that somebody has raped you, or you have been, or your child has been defiled. Take samples, go to the hospital street so that the doctors can pick samples from the system and prove as evidence tomorrow. Some people will go and bath nicely before going to the hospital or to the police station. So they should also be conscious of saving some or gathering evidence as they go along, and it will help and enhance the help that they are looking for.
All right.
So yeah, in summary, it depends upon what is happening and the help that is available. Right. But I can assure you that the Domestic Violence Act has a lot of solution.
Right. So the supervisor of that act, so to speak, is here. Tell us, if I'm in a situation, how do I get help?
Okay, so it depends on the kind of situation you are in. For instance, if you've been sexually abused, defiled, or raped, you will need a lot of help, including medical counseling. You might need a clinical psychologist, and definitely you will need the police to do investigations. So what happens is that when you are raped, you immediately go to the police station, depending on the situation. If the police station is closer to you, you can go there straight. Other than that, we always encourage people to go straight to the hospital. When you go, inform them of the situation, let them assess you, examine you, provide you whatever medical care you need, after which you can decide to go home and have your bath and come to the police station. We also encourage, like Madam said, that you must always try and take pictures if it is possible. We need to see the state in which you were before you went to the hospital. And also, if it is physical abuse, you also need counseling, because sometimes, depending on the situation, or even emotional abuse, the person will be psychologically traumatized in a way that even taking statement from the person becomes difficult. So at DOFSU, we are encouraging situations where we don't rush to take statement. Because when the person is traumatized in that state, the person will not give you the right information, because recollecting events might be a problem. So depending on the situation, when you come before us, we do need assessment. And when we do need assessment, we realize that looking at the situation, you will need a counselor or a clinical psychologist. Then we link you up. There are times too that the person will need a social welfare assistance, and then we'll get social welfare involved. There are times a person will need shelter, then we'll reach out to NGOs who have shelter to assist. So it depends on what the person is going. There are times that the person will come and the person will need all, including social welfare, medical, clinical psychologist, the police, shelter, and then some economic assistance.
Right. The law says that you should make a complaint about the domestic violence at the police station where you reside. That's where the victim resides. It says also the domestic violence where it occurred or is occurring, or the victim is residing temporarily, where the victim has left his or her usual place of abode.
Yeah.
Is there any issue about where I can report to and where I'm not allowed to report to? And if it's a child, a child cannot come and make a complaint, right?
Yes. A child, if the child is bold enough to walk to the police station, we will definitely listen to the child. But before we do that, we involve either social welfare or trace the parents before we do any interview. Most of the time, children are unable to do that, but an adult can do so on behalf of the child. Or a child can confide in a teacher that he or she trusts, or a headmistress, or a pastor, or somebody she is comfortable with, and then that person can lead the child to the police station to make the report. And also, if an adult...
That's what the law means by a child may be assisted by a next friend to file the complaint.
Exactly. So anybody who has information about the child being abused can talk to us. Now, there are two things. When you talk to us as a complainant on behalf of a child, from the onset, let us know how you want us to classify you. Some people want to be classified as informed. Others too don't mind. They want to be known that they came to make the complaint.
Others could be parents, so that is easier.
That is easier. But if, for instance, you are in the neighborhood, or you happen to be a teacher, or maybe you know the abuser happens to be your friend, but you don't want the abuser to know that you reported, then please, when you come, you speak to the senior police officer there, and then let the person know that you don't want to be known as the person.
So there is a situation where these things can be reported without somebody feeling that I will be victimized in the family, that I'm the one who reported it. Supposing the perpetrator is a member of the family.
Yes.
Supposing in a case of sexual abuse where it is incestuous kind of relationship, there's a situation where there can be a report without a member of the family being the one to do so.
Yes, definitely.
Is that what the law refers to as a social worker, prohibition officer, a healthcare provider can file the complaint?
For instance, if you go to a hospital, maybe a mother who is abusing the child will take the child to the hospital. And then the doctor sensing that the child might be being abused can report to the social worker at the hospital straight away. So the social worker will take it up to with the police. Or if he happens to know a police officer's number, the person will call immediately. I have had situations where I'll be in my office and the medical doctor has called me before that he's just examining a child and he suspects abuse, and we had moved in. So social worker can do that. Maybe the mother might have gone there, or the parent or whoever is abusing the child there for some other reason. The social worker can report, sensing that there's an abuse. In fact, when you look at the Children's Act, under the Children's Act, it's social welfare's responsibility to ensure that the child is not abused. So they have the power to go to the house to rescue a child. They have a power to go to the house and investigate issues of abuse concerning children.
In situations where it is necessary, does the police also help to get the restraining orders so that the abuser does not live with the survivor, and then there's a possibility of continuing to have the incidents occurring?
Definitely. So when you come there, first and foremost, our first assessment is whether you need medical. 2, your security.
Okay.
These are the 2 things before we look at, okay, let's take statements. After listening to you, we want to know, okay, what can we do? Because we don't have the resources all over. So we need time to plan. So immediately we have to, while somebody is taking your statement, if it's possible, then another person is also trying to figure out how we can help you. So when you come to the police station and we sense that, no, the way things are, you need a restraining order.
You don't have to go back to that house.
Exactly. So what we then will do is that if we need if you need a protection order or an occupation order, then we will refer you to the lawyers that we work with, and then they can quickly, because for us police, if we want to build our docket, it might take time, because if you take it to the prosecutor will want you to finish your case before.
Right.
So we normally have lawyers that we work with.
I'll get you to explain to us the difference again between the protection and occupation order, so that it will help our viewers a lot more. Now, at this juncture, we are allowing you to join us. You can begin to call the numbers. Look on the screen. The numbers are going to be displayed right away. And for those of you who have been able to join, who are able to join us via Zoom, let's begin to advertise the Zoom ID as well. So you can join us with your questions for our very capable guests who know the ins and outs of what they are talking about. They are not talking about it as, you know, something they have read. You know, they are talking about what they have done, what they experience, and the sort of help that they give when these situations occur. Now, if Irene may help us here briefly, in the situation where the person didn't survive, they are dead, how do we go about it? Who is going to make the report, and how is that going to be helped? Please unmute. No, we can't hear you. Good. Quickly, yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please.
All right. If you look at Section 6 of the Domestic Violence Act,
right,
it says that a victim of domestic violence or a person with information, I want to place emphasis on a person with information about domestic violence may file complaints about the domestic violence with the police. So it is not only the perpetrator, the survivor, or the other personnel that you've discussed,
right,
that file. I have actually tested this particular provision successfully. A popular case that a pastor beat up 2 children in his church.
Teenagers, yes, the Obinim, we remember that.
Yes. Yeah, but when I took him up on this particular provision, he was eventually fined and he paid an amount of money for that crime that he committed.
Okay, please hold on for, please hold on for us. Let me go to, who is calling us first? Yes, Tamaklo, you have been on the line for a while. Go ahead, let's hear your question.
A girl, a woman.
Hello, Tamaklo, start.
I married a woman, and I said she should use my name. At the court, she used my name. At least I said she wouldn't use my name. But she will use the father's name. I said, no, make it compound name. Your father's name and my name. She said no. And this has been troubling me. I don't want to do anything silly. That will bring me.
All right.
What can I do?
All right, Tamaklo, thank you very much. We have heard you. Don't do anything silly. You can agree on this nicely. If you can't, you can get a third party to assist you. Hello, Letitia.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Go ahead.
Okay. So thank you for having this show, and I hope a lot of women are watching this, and one of your panelists make the point saying that, usually when it happens to the woman in our part of the world, we are quick to say that, oh, go back. We haven't normalized, it shouldn't be normalized, but we haven't normalized the fact that women, when they are being abused, can say that I want to leave this relationship. Why? Because simply, maybe the man is taking care of everything. It is time to empower the women. And as women who have girls, let's tell them that it is not okay to be abused. You don't have to stay in an abusive relationship. Seek help. And then to doctors, please, when they run to you, let them feel at home. Make them reporting normal. Don't let us start pointing fingers. Usually the women are right. I'm not taking sides, but let's normalize the fact that you should leave a relationship when it's abusive.
Thank you, Letitia. Thank you so very much, Letitia. Let's go to Hannah in Legon. Hello, Hannah.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please, so what are we doing as a country in regards to the women who have to pay their medical bills for their abuse? Because I believe in most countries the state pays for it. And secondly, when they go to court, who pays for these legal fees when it has to go to arbitration? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, Christian. You are calling from Techiman.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Christian. Go ahead.
Yes. I've been listening to your program and I have an issue I want it to be addressed.
Quickly, Christian.
Yes. I'm a health worker and my mom is married to a man who is supposed to be my stepfather. And then this man has been abusing this woman. I've stayed with them for some time, verbally and physically and all that. And surprisingly, this man is a policeman. And that is a worry, because usually when you try making the complaints and all that, the police tend to support their own.
Okay, so we'll shortly assist you. We'll shortly assist you with information as to what to do. I'll pick my last caller, Samuel. Then we try and get you some answers. Once we are done and there is time, then we take another batch of questions. Hello, Samuel.
Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. It appears that most often family relationship that we look at the woman and the man, when women are abused, we seek to protect the women more. But we all know that if care is not taken, a man may harm to some extent, and that may take certain dimension which is not also proper. So we need to look at these things critically, for not to encourage women to be creating more lies to attract a family disunity, but rather to build a family together. That's my point I want to make.
All right, thank you very much, Samuel, for your contribution. We are clearly admit that it is not only women who suffer domestic violence, but men also do, and that is why the law is gender neutral in its approach. Now, let's begin with Christian. Christian says that, so Christian will be an informant, will be a person who knows about a domestic abuse situation. What would be your advice to Christian? Irene, his fear is that this is a police officer, so he might not get anywhere.
Maybe it should have been directed to me, then I can answer.
Right. Let's start with Usua.
Yes. So I would like to assure the general public that we do not cover abusers who happen to be police officers. We have successfully investigated cases of abuse against, and when we do find, we will have to take the person through the internal procedure. Because the person belongs to a police service, after the investigation, there are internal procedures to be taken before we can put the person before court.
All right.
So, and the public should also be aware that they shouldn't think that because the person is a police officer and they've said something about him or made allegations against him, he must be found by all means guilty.
Okay.
He's also a human being. He has a right like
has
any other.
Presumed innocent
Exactly. So the person will be taken through the same procedure as we will take an outsider.
But you appreciate that in this situation, Christian is thinking that the police officer works within the station where the woman is.
Yes.
So can they go to another place to report?
Definitely.
Okay.
Once you are uncomfortable with that police station, and sometimes it is perception. For instance, you can stay close to our police station, and I'll be in charge, and I'll still prosecute you like I'll do if you were living somewhere in the northern region.
Okay.
So it has nothing to do with proximity or the fact that the person is a police officer, but it's normal for people to have that perception.
Yes, because there'll be camaraderie. You know, this police officer, his friends and his colleagues are there, and they come and report him to his colleagues. You know, he may be able to influence what will go on. That's what their fear is.
So no problem. So you can report to any police station close by that you are comfortable with.
Because this is an exceptional situation.
Exactly. And if the police officer, the DOPSO officer is not behaving professionally, you can also write against that police personnel.
So that will be a petition?
A petition, yes.
That should go where?
You can either petition the Director General CID.
Okay.
You can also send a petition to my office, or you can petition PIPS, or you can do all the three.
All right. And I can give you a testimony. I have petitioned for a number of times. Right. Now, Hannah says victims, you know, have to pay medical bills, and then all of this is discouraging. What is happening? Irene, would you like to repeat this education we have given over and again, particularly that your organization, Survivors of Domestic Violence, you are pushing to ensure that the law is actually implemented to the letter?
Yes, it is a big concern that a survivor will have to pay for medical bills when she or he arrives at the hospital, when our laws are clear that such fees should not be paid by the survivors. And we've been trying to bring attention to this, drawing the government's attention to this fact that survivors are not supposed to pay for their medical bills. Now, the other part of it is that if you are successful through prosecution or whatever, you can come under, I think, Section 27 of the Domestic Violence Act and institute a civil suit against the perpetrator. So let's just assume that these medical fees are quite minor fees, but the damage that has been caused to the body, to your person, your brain and other things,
you can get compensation for that. Okay.
You can be compensated in damages.
All right.
By institution of a civil suit against the perpetrator.
Just quickly to add to what Madam said, the court also, in ruling in the criminal case, can also order for compensation to be paid to the survivor. Right.
And again, Hannah, your question about court bills. When it is a criminal trial, it is not the accused who pays anything. It is the state that does it, and they don't pay a dime in that process. It is when you have to do a civil case that you have to foot the bill for that, because that is your private suit. There was Letitia. Letitia simply was giving advice to, I think, DOFSU, that when people come, you should let them feel at home, and so on and so forth. So I suppose the final one, which was the first caller, Tamaklo, was concerned about the non-use of his surname by his wife. How should they go about that situation?
I think they should get a third person, preferably maybe if they have a pastor or a counselor, to sit with them and discuss issues. Because the way it is not, I mean, it's not an abuse for now, but it seems it would degenerate.
He sounds angry.
Yes.
Yes. Irene, what will you tell Tamaklo? He's not happy at all. The wife won't take his surname. The wife will not even add it as a compound name. Please,
that when you change your name.
Sorry, say that again.
There is no law in Ghana that says that when you marry, change your name.
Yeah.
It is something that you do voluntarily. So I don't think that the woman's refusal to take on the man's name is. I think it's just an honor done to the partner. So if the woman says that Tamaklo should write her name, will he be annoyed or he'll be happy? So change of name, it's a voluntary act. That is my contribution.
Okay. However, they need someone to talk to so that it doesn't degenerate. Because listening to Tamaklo,
which is
let's pray.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So we can take just one or two more calls. Just one or two more calls. Who is on the line? Okay. So you have been listening to and watching the law. And my guests have been Irene Aboche-Nyahe, who is Director, Legal Assistance Network Ghana and Executive Member of FIDA Ghana. And then, of course, Chief Superintendent Owusu Treme, who is a Coordinating Director of DOFSU. And we have been treating domestic violence, how to get help. Hello, David. You're calling us from Kumasi. Quick.
Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon. Go ahead with your question.
Yes, I've heard your lady saying that there is no law compelling women to change their name.
Yes, you know about a law like that?
No, but if that is the case, if we are going to go strictly according to the law, and by that, are they also going to say that men should stop paying for the bride price and all that?
That's your custom. The bride price is your custom. Your customs are part of the laws of Ghana, according to Article 11 of the Constitution.
Yes, so if men are being made to pay all those things, that they must also be made to get something from it.
No, I'm telling you that is your custom, and your custom is part of our body of laws. The change of name, she says there's no law, and you can't point us to any law to that effect. So yes, she's saying, do it with an understanding. Yeah?
The change of name is also part of the custom, because it's the custom that is...
Which custom? Which custom is that?
The custom.
No, it's not.
Even when you marry under customary law, you don't take your husband.
It's not. Have you seen people marrying under customary law? They do the custom thing and their names get changed. It is rather when they do the ordinance, then they want to change their names. Okay. Who else? Okay. So thank you also very much. And I think on that very final note, let's learn to accommodate each other, have an understanding, and not try to push things too far sometimes. And if you don't have sufficient knowledge on an issue, try and get the experts to help you. Your church people are there, elders all over. Let them all assist you so that it doesn't get to a situation where it can result in an abuse. Our time is up. I wish I could take a minute from each one of you, but we are done. My guests have been Irene Aboche-Nyahe, who is Director, Legal Assistance Network, Ghana, and Executive Member, FIDA Ghana. Chief Superintendent Owusu Treme, DOFSU Coordinating Director. Thank you so very much for honoring our calls in the last, 3 weeks, and the previous weeks in the previous months. I'm Samson Ladia Yenene. This is The Law. It's your legal light and health law.